You guys asked for it, and so here it is. On Instagram, I did a poll to see if you guys would like to see some of my sketchbooks from when I was in college, and you guys overwhelmingly said yes. These are the two sketchbooks that I have. I actually have like maybe 4 or 5 ones, but they're not as cool looking as these. And the way I structured these two, went to college, 4-year Polytechnic school, so you can go there for music, science, math, English, and art. I was a art student. However, for my first year as a freshman, I was a general eds student. I had to do a whole application and give art pieces and all that stuff, and then I went into the art field. I was only in college for 3 years, could have taken art classes if you weren't officially an art student yet, like the beginner course. No longer in college. Long story short, anxiety attacks, had some issues. So we're gonna start with my first sketchbook. This is for 2D design. I had this, I think my freshman year, second semester. So this was spring 2017. Our first assignment was to do a line inventories where we had to do different widths of lines, taking notes on different types of lines. Here, did a little doodle. Here was one of my line practices. Just doing different widths of line, added some like whiteness, so it would just make it pop, I guess. Here's an activity where they wanted us to do handwriting, expressive lines. This one was write your name 3 times as an old person. Write your name 3 times really small, so different kind of like prompts to do. We did a lot of just like really practice stuff in here. These were more different types of lines, a controlled line, chaos line, straight line, etc. First, for one of our first projects, it was 2 types of line. So these were my thumbnails. This was, I think, my second thumbnail idea. And this was the idea I actually went with because it looked cool if the floor was kind of like at an angle and then there were 2 like balls rolling down. Gave the illusion that it was rolling. We had midterm sketchbook assignments at the beginning of the semester. My teacher, we were given a sketchbook midterm assignment. So we were given a bunch of sketchbook homework to do that you had to get done before the midterm. During the midterm, she would take your sketchbook and look over. On top of having to fill in your sketchbook for all the assignments and projects, you had to do it for this. Here we had to do different types of line versus another types of unity versus chaos, more types of lines, you know, just whatever, light versus dark, dark versus light, plain versus pattern, busy versus quiet, in your own way. This was way to achieve balance, and then you had to come up with your own balance idea, and we had to write about what it means to be out of balance and stuff. We had to look at shapes and volume. We had to look at different logos, so like the Google logo is generalization, it's very basic. Positive and negative space in the FedEx, you can see they make an arrow. Sprint is abstraction, because that's an abstract object. Space and picture plane. It's the same shape and the same size, but one looks bigger than the other, you know, the illusion. We had to talk about a website that showed great space and picture plane. So I chose tfw2005.com and talked about the layout of the website. I thought it was pretty funny. More illusion of motion. We had to do like kind of like making our own little GIF or animation, if you will. A couple journal entries about color and what it means to us, how it impacts us, and I love color, as you can tell by my room. There's a lot of fucking color. I love color a lot. Here was my thumbnails for my shape inventory. So we had to do a line inventory, a shape inventory, and texture inventory. Those are my thumbnails. This was my finished piece. Texture thumbnail is my favorite. It's a fun way to get us to have to do an assignment, but also like play around and look at shapes in a whole different way. Was for our texture and value part 2. We had to do a bunch of letters and you make ones bigger and smaller to add value. Some more thumbnailing for that. I had my final idea. I think I have it pasted in here. Yep, here was my final assignment. Oh, here. This is for a project, one of my favorite projects we did for 2D design. I don't have the finished drawing or illustration. Must have never got the email for when we could pick up this assignment. And the school then went on locked up for the summer, and I never got to go back and get my piece. But I have my thumbnail in here, as I have all the tools and all the materials that I used for this project, and I'm thinking about redoing it so that I have it, but it's not the real piece, but it's very close to the real piece. This was one of our projects we do for dynamic composition, where we had to use fruits. So she wanted you to pick 2 fruits and start drawing them in like different compositions from like the materials we learned. So I picked an apple and an orange because I find them to be 2 of the most interesting fruits. An orange, if you cut it, has this really cool grains in the veins of the orange. In the apple, you can take the apple seeds and arrange them in a really cool way. cut up all the apples and the oranges and arranged them and waiting. I wanted to do something with the apple seeds because they're there and they could be used really cool. I wanted us to do 5 interesting compositions. Thought a close-up of the orange inside, cut up the apple pieces kind of splayed in like a flower. Here's like my pictures I took. Are 4 interesting compositions. I was really liking the way these 2 turned out. That's why they have the stars on them. She wanted us to use tracing paper to try to rotate and dilate and translate and reflect the different fruits. So this went with this. Told to look through some Wucius Wong patterns and stuff and see which patterns we liked, and then we would have to translate those patterns kind of, or mix them in to our final piece. I like things that have like a florally kind of like Victorian feel to them. Some more composition practice, trying to add more interesting things to the background so it's not just plain. Some more compositions. I really love the idea of these swirly lines, like it's kind of like swirly but like squiggly. Here's when I started to really use the apple seeds and incorporate them into the piece. I also really like this idea of like the apples being in front, but then in the background you have this swirly thing, like the apples are coming up. Here we had to do more thumbnailing. I was really enjoying these 2 ideas, and then these next were my final ideas I had. So this was one of them. She wanted us to have 5 different values, so like light to mid-gray to like black. Here I was just playing around more at the background. This is my final composition for that fruit piece. So I had these swirly bits come up. I had the apple seeds kind of like as a border. The apples were kind of going around in a circle. I made some more notes. I wanted all those squiggles to kind of start at the bottom and branch out. And I'll score for my piece a 15.75 out of 18. So not bad, but I definitely would like to redo this piece because I don't have it anymore and I really would love to have it. Taking all of my notes and everything and just redrawing it. While doing one of our lectures, I was just brainstorming an idea of what first and last initial could be as a logo. This was the first time I ever used gouache, and I still hate gouache paint to this day. Remember, I sat at a table with 2 other girls in my class and we all collectively agreed that we hate gouache. I was just testing out using it like a watercolor, testing out with adding black, lots of water, no water. I've tried to watch tutorials on how to use gouache paint and I've tried it and I don't like the medium. Some more notes on that or handouts. Gouache painting exercises we had to do. More gouache exercise / notes. Here was for our final piece for the semester using gouache paint was to do a Charlie Harper inspired drawing. This is Charlie Harper's work. He does a lot of animals in basic shapes. So like the bird has a triangle, a circle. Like it's to simplify the animal as much as possible, only using shapes. Or practicing. I had to use Photoshop for the first time ever. And I still don't know how to use it. Just more figuring out what I want to do for my Charlie Harper piece. Tiny thumbnail idea was to do like a peacock. I think I was in my English class, supposed to be listening to the teacher. I wasn't. Was sketching out peacocks, trying to figure out how to draw it. Here's one of my first attempts. Trying to simplify it. This was my simplified version, sketches. Trying to simplify it even more. Here, trying to simplify it even more, and then here was a more simplified version. So this was my final composition. Supposed to pick a color theme. Went with double complementary, so I was only allowed to use blues and oranges. Here's a picture of my final piece. I do have it, I don't have it out at the moment. I don't hate it, I don't like gouache paint. I really would like to do this with acrylics because I know it would turn out a hell of a lot better. It was another final composition of it in a bigger scale form. Some more notes. Oh, here is my texture inventory. It's kind of like texture based on like wood. This was just based on numbers, adding value. This was based on the pattern of my couch. I like just like the busyness of this one, like snow coming down and how it all gathered at the bottom. Paper, we had to do an analysis of this piece. This piece is by this guy called Entombment, and it's from 1528. But we had to just label like focal point, unity, and harmony, and how there's flow from the page, and how you look at one person and you see where their hand is pointing, so you look at this person and him, and then you follow the movement of his body and you see her. It's just like the movement in the piece, and as everyone's eyes move. We had to take the same piece and kind of change it up a bit. I did with covering up the people's eyes and adding kind of like a staticky, like TV aspect, kind of like a symbol of how, you know, we're all plugged into our TVs and we don't really see everyone as individuals or as people. We sometimes just see people as objects, kind of where I went with that piece. That was my 2D design sketchbook. I really love this sketchbook. So thank you guys so much for watching this book tour of mine of one of my college sketchbooks. Be on the lookout for the second video, which will be coming out of my college sketchbooks very soon. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye guys!